Hey, it's Ed. Welcome to another edition of Ed Talks. I have an amazing, really interesting guest, Gary Chan. Gary, welcome to Ed Talks.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ed. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Gary, tell us a little bit about you, and then I'm going to tell everyone how we first met.
Sure. I'm Gary Jan, and I've been doing security for about 20 some years, and I just love it. I do that, and I also do some mentalism, as you already know.
Yeah, and that's, what's so funny? As I get older, you say you've been doing this for 20 years, you look like a teenager to me. So that's why I know I'm getting old. It's like the younger people look, even though they've been, experienced in the industry, definitely makes me older. So it's kind of funny to hear
You're
when
still
people...
looking good, though, Ed.
All right, thank you. That's because my wife, I don't, yeah, you had a chance to meet my wife, and she is a clinician and she has a med spa. So she does a lot of the practicing, on my forehead. So it's all good. Yeah. So that's how we met. We met at dinner at Vive, and I just thought you were super interesting. We went around the table and we were like, hey, give us a 30-second introduction. Like, where do you work? What do you do? And something that interests you, like a hobby. And you were like, mentalism. And we were all like, what do you say? What? Mentalism? What exactly is that? And then you shared, which I just found fascinating, why you're on Ed Talks, how you incorporate that in your work. I mean, you also do things on the side, which we'll talk about, but you incorporate it in your work. And so I don't want to steal your thunder. So tell us a little bit about mentalism. Let's first share what that is, and then we'll talk about how you incorporate that into the workplace.
Sure. Mentalism is kind of like magic, where you get a magical outcome and you just didn't expect it to happen. Mentalism is kind of like the core word. It's mental. Everything's in your head. So I play a lot of psychological games, and I incorporate that a lot into the work that we do. So you try to think about things from the other person's perspective, which I would argue is what we should always do whenever we're presenting. But I sort of take it to the extreme, and then I turn them into games, and it's very engaging, and that really gets people excited and interested in information security. And I'll just tell you one thing: I get Christmas cards from other people that I work with that I don't even know them. And they send me these Christmas cards and they say, we love the security awareness training. And I think that's pretty unusual, but it works. I mean, that's sort of proof.
Yeah. And you did it at the dinner. So I think we were waiting a long time, right, for the food to come out or something. And so I was like, all right, use me as the guinea pig. Like, show me how you would make this interesting, right? Because, everyone rolls their eyes. It was security training, although it's so important because the majority of breaches that happen are because, the social engineering and the mental things, so you used me as example. So I know it was true and how it all worked. And it was just amazing. So it was part magic, but part this, you utilize your mentalism, and it really works. And I recall later that evening, we had you do it again, and you picked out of this whole room of people. I was like, Gary, don't pick that guy. I know his name's Elliot. Don't pick him because, he's going to try and trip you up. And sure enough, he was trying to trip you up the whole time, but it still all worked out. And it was pretty amazing. Even he was like blown away. So it's so cool, what you do. How long have you been doing this? Like, was this a hobby like when you were a kid or as an adult? How did it start?
Oh, yeah, I've been doing it for longer than I've been doing security. So yeah, I've been doing magic since I was a kid. And then over time, it turned into mentalism because I think it's harder and it also fits my personality a little bit better. So I did that, and then COVID happened, and I was trying to think about how to create something that no one else could replicate. And I know two things. I know security and I know mentalism. So I created a whole show. Basically, I call it Security Mentalism. And essentially, I just want to create something no one else could do that would be a lot of fun. And I think I got it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've never heard of anyone in the cybersecurity space, doing mentalism, or anyone doing mentalism or magic venturing into cybersecurity space. So you definitely brought the two together. And it's just fascinating because I watched it. I watched it at dinner and later on that evening where everyone paid attention. Right? Because we know cybersecurity, I was the same way. I would get my training, and I would just click through everything, if it was online, click through it and just try to take the test at the end, pass the test. And I really wasn't paying attention. And everyone there was like super, super engaged. Like, what's going on? What's going on? And I love the fact that it's not just sleight of hand. It's not just magic, but you really do use some of this, that whole mentalism approach, and just use your mind, and you're able to lead people a certain way, much like a phishing attack might do, or a clever person on the phone might lead someone a certain direction that they shouldn't go. And so it's very, very effective training. So I'm not surprised that you would get those Christmas cards or other notifications about, the effectiveness of what you do.
Let me just explain a little bit to some of the folks who may be listening.
Yes.
So one of the things that I do, right, like is I talk about vishing. And I think with standard training, what they do is they just say, oh, someone's going to call you and try to get some information from you. And everybody goes, oh, well, they're not going to get me, right? And what I do is I actually talk through what people will do whenever they're trying to social engineer you on the phone, when they're vishing you. And I talk through like, they're going to speed up the cadence of their speech. They're going to try to get you just thinking faster. These really, really subtle things. They're going to try to embarrass you. They're going to change. They're going to try to affect your emotions. And I get into a lot more detail and talk about how we can do all of these things. And then, of course, everyone's like, oh, this is nice in theory. Then we just have somebody in the audience, like, just have people pick random numbers and I call the phone number and I just steal as much information as I can on the phone. And when people see that you can do this, then they really start paying attention. So that's what the mentalism is about. It's about basically showing people it really, really can be done.
Yeah, it is amazing, right? We always think it's just like, the unlearned or whatever that fall for these tricks. And it's not true. I even had a situation recently, Gary, where I had tweeted, I avoid a particular airline. I'm not going to mention the airline. I was forced to use that airline. It was a bad experience as I expected. And I tweeted about it. I got a phone call within the 24 hours saying, hey, this is so-and-so from our, service recovery. We're sorry you had this bad experience on our airline. We're here to make it right. And I was like, really? This airline is like paying attention? And so I listened to him for a bit and I thought this was a legit call. And then as things went on a little bit, I was like, oh my gosh, this is very, very clever. But, if I didn't have already the training from all the cybersecurity and stuff, because of my background, I could have easily, fell into that. And it happens all the time, as we know. So doing what you do really like helps people think next level, like, hey, I think someone may be manipulating me. This just doesn't sound right. And, and then they see you do it and they have that experience themselves. I think it obviously super, super effective. So this is pretty awesome. Gary, if people want to learn more, like, man, I want Gary to be our keynote speaker, or I want him to come in and talk about cybersecurity to our team. How do people get a hold of you?
Sure. They can go to my website. So that would be gschan2000.com. So that's gschan2000.com. And they can reach me there.
That's awesome. We'll also put all that information in the show notes. And I can tell you I am witness. I've seen Gary perform a couple times now. Next time I see him or have the opportunity, I'm going to have him perform again or go see him. Really, really good stuff. And it's just so refreshing, Gary, because I don't want to stereotype any type of profession or professionals, but you're a breath of fresh air. Let me just say it like that. Because, you're just your approach, your demeanor and how you do it. It doesn't come across as preachy. You want to listen, you want to engage. So I'm a huge proponent and I'm your huge reference. Gary, thank you so much for being on EDTalks.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a ton of fun chatting with you.